Hello and welcome to the ROPESCAST, the independent voice of the Middle East. I'm Ksenia Svetlova. ROPES stands for the Regional Organization for Peace, Economics and Security. We are a young organization that works to lay the groundwork for a post-conflict Middle East by connecting forward-thinking Israeli, Palestinian and Middle Eastern emerging leaders. We share a holistic vision for the Middle East, where everyone has more to win from conflict resolution and integration than to lose. If you are looking for more information on us, please visit our website, ropes.org. And today I'm very happy to present to you a very special guest of the ROPESCAST. It's Ambassador Abderahman Salaheldin, Dr. Abderahman Salaheldin, who is a 4 decades career veteran Egyptian diplomat, turned now academician after retirement. As a visiting professor of practice, he teaches international relations and foreign policy at Badr University in Egypt. He also continues to be involved in track to diplomacy on regional issues. He lectures regularly at the Egyptian Foreign Ministry Diplomatic Institute, participates in academic and policy-oriented seminars in American, European, and Egyptian universities, and writes op-eds in Arabic and English. Prior to his retirement in 2018, Ambassador Salahaddin served twice as the Egyptian Assistant Foreign Minister for Arab and Middle Eastern Affairs. He was also the ambassador to Turkey and to the Czech Republic. He spent 17 years of his diplomatic career in the United States, Washington, New York, and San Francisco. Ambassador Salah, Alf Salam, Ahlan wa Sahlan. We are very, very happy to welcome you to the ROPESCAST.
It's very nice to see you and to meet you in person, and I honor the effort that your organization is trying to play in support of peace, and I'm happy to be your guest today.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. So we want to jump in immediately to what is happening, and everything is happening all the time. But prior to that, let's start with something a little bit softer. So you spent many years as a career diplomat in embassies and, being representing Egypt abroad, strict protocols. We know all of that. How do you compare your current activities, being a professor, teaching young students in Egypt, and also being engaged in track 2? How is it different for you? And perhaps, how do you feel about this activity?
Well, I am enjoying actually this period of my life. As you rightly said, after more than 4 decades of diplomacy, where I was representing my country and my government, I am now more free. I have more freedom to speak my mind and to also contribute with new ideas. Of course, there is no guarantee that those ideas are going to be well received by my colleagues first in those track to diplomacy. We have in those efforts, we have Israelis, Palestinians, Arabs of most countries, actually, and also Mediterranean countries represented. We present many ideas, especially during crisis time. And we would be always very glad to find a decision maker or an official picking on our ideas and try to developing. And I think the Gaza crisis, the 2-year war, present us with the best opportunity to pick up some of those ideas, innovative ideas, to try out of the rubbles to try build something better than the situation was in 2023 or so. In short, after retirement, academician has more freedom, more time to think and read, and to interconnect with private people with intellectuals. But I hope that we are listened to. I hope that our voices are heard, especially from those who are interested in peace.
Thank you very much for everything that you are doing for the sake of peace in our region. You live there, I live there, and we have to continue fighting for that. That's what we do in Ropes. We don't give up because we just don't have this option. We are part of this region, and therefore, it's our job to bring peace closer to us. Ambassador, I'm actually working right now on my PhD. That takes forever. As somebody who completed your PhD on Arab Spring, if I'm not mistaken, right? So the pain that is involved in this job, but it's also a very fascinating process. So I'm going and I'm writing about Egyptian-Israeli relations, and I'm going over a lot of old newspapers from the 80s, actually, Al-Aram, Al-Gumhuriya, Al-Waft, and mostly status affiliated media, but also some opposition. And I came across, a lot of speeches and ideas that were present at the time, shortly after Camp David, about, how to find a solution for the Palestinian problem, yes? And, President Mubarak, for example, at the time, he was always mentioning that we need a salam al-shamil, the complete peace, the overwhelming peace for the whole region. But, so it was the 80s, and we are now today speaking in 2026. And a salam al-shamil, unfortunately, is nowhere to be found. So it will be a little bit blunt. Does it mean that traditional diplomacy failed?
Well, I'm very happy that you are studying Egyptian-Israeli relations because we need more Israelis to understand and appreciate the importance of Egyptian-Israeli peace. I am missing this appreciation in many of the statements that are made by top Israeli officials. And some of them would go even to the extent of describing the Egyptian armed forces as a potential threat against Israel. And this is unfortunate. And I think of the Israeli-Egyptian peace as an asset for both countries, actually, an important asset for both countries. This peace stood for 45 years or more. Many challenges, many very difficult challenges. And it stood also a very negative Egyptian and Arab public opinion against Israeli policies vis-a-vis the Palestinians, especially. And I would highlight especially the last 2 years, because I was a university student when Sadat made his historic visit in 1977 to your country. And I clearly remember that the popular support of the majority, of course, there were some opposition to the move, but the popular support came from the fact that most people, most Egyptians did not want any more wars, did not want to lose their children, their relatives, etc. And I think that was what was accomplished. We stand witness to this in the last 45, 46 years. And for Israeli officials, and that's what I'm worried about. I mean, maybe opposition people, intellectuals can talk but officials and even military people to talk about the Egyptian military as a source of threat, it is really worrying. It's really worrying. The second thing I would encourage you to look at also is how this peace can contribute to changing the present situation. Because our experience can provide an example of how Israeli relations with other Arab countries, especially neighboring countries, could be built upon, even the Palestinians. Because the Egyptian-Israeli peace was first based on a reciprocal recognition of concerns. Egyptian recognition of Israeli security concerns and Israeli recognition of Egyptian territorial rights. So there was full withdrawal and full diplomatic relations and normal relations. Also, there was security guarantees that was implemented, and Sinai was demilitarized in the northern eastern part of it until very recently. For maybe 40 years, it was Israel who decided to allow the Egyptian military back to Area C in order to counter the terrorist threat that is common threat to both countries, to both Egypt and Israel. And we were able to overcome this threat. So those who are talking in Israel about Egypt build up in Sinai forget that the fact that this was done in a mutual agreement between the two governments and the two militaries who are actually in close contact. And I think they understand each other much better than politicians who are addressing their domestic audiences. Last point, the Egyptian-Israeli peace was not done overnight. It was done over a long period of time. The first agreement was signed in 1978, Camp David II frameworks, and the full implementation lasted until 82 and 86 when we got Taba back through arbitration, not through armed conflict, not through any military operation, but through arbitration. So it took 7 years. And that's what I am telling my Israeli friends and my Palestinian friends. We can design, guided by this model, we can design an Israeli-Palestinian peace that includes the mutual and reciprocal recognition of rights and includes security arrangements that would allay the concerns of the Israeli security and the Palestinian security. And it could be a phased implementation, could have a phased implementation that would provide confidence building, would provide for many institution building, etc., elections and all of these things. Instead of focusing on that, unfortunately, I am hearing people in Israel and in some centers of power talking about concerns about Egypt and others, and that's even more worrying to the public opinion, Egyptian public opinion, talking about Greater Israel from the Euphrates to the Nile. What is that? I mean, this is not a biblical talk. This is really a very dangerous talk. And I have to warn that this might complicate Israel's acceptance in the wider Middle East.
Ambassador, I have so many questions now to ask you, but first, for the sake of our listeners and viewers who did not follow for some reason, I have to update them that the recent discoveries made by the Israeli security services, they found out that some very close to Netanyahu, some aides who were very close to Netanyahu, their salaries were paid by Qatari government for a while for the consulting services that they gave. And it seems that at least some of the messaging against Egypt came as an organized campaign. It did not happen sporadically, but it was part of the well-orchestrated move that at the time, I can tell you that when it happened, of course, we were not aware of, this development that is very worrisome and very dangerous, because people who involved with, state security and state affairs should not be having their salary paid by any government, not Qatari, not Russia, not United States. But at the real time, me and Amir Oron, who was a former Israeli ambassador to Cairo, just between us, and we were saying, what? Why are they saying this, for God's sake? This is just some outrageous. So I just I want you to know that there are many different opinions, and some people saw through this campaign from the very beginning. And another thing that I actually just discovered myself going over some reports of the CIA, that Egyptian military spending went lower through the years, and it went down from 26% of the GDP in 1976 to 1.5% currently in 2025. So it doesn't mean that Egypt doesn't have an army. It has an army, it's a strong army, but nevertheless, the spending is much less significant now than it used to be in the years that preceded the peace agreement. So on that romantic note, I want to ask you, Ambassador, a more specific question about the future of Gaza. So there is no war right now. The war officially had ended. There are still some strikes that are happening, and there is still exchange of blows between Hamas and the Israeli army. But nevertheless, there is a ceasefire. But ceasefire is very different from peace. And I can tell you that many Israelis are looking at Gaza, first of all, with a lot of suspicion after the 10/7. I think that's natural. And they ask themselves, so what really needs to happen that, that the questions of security will be, they will just disappear, that it will be clear that Gaza is stabilized, that it's in good arms, there is governance, it's not Hamas. What's your opinion on that? And what is the opinion in Cairo, on what are the ways to stabilize Gaza, to prevent also the trafficking of weapons and forbidden materials into Gaza from both ends. There were trafficking that was made from Israel, but also from the Egyptian part. And in the end of the day, both Egypt and Israel is interested, I think that should be the most interest, that it will be a stable and secure place for the sake of our both countries. So yes, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, probably I would start with my own views on this. I think we should learn. I think Israel should learn from the 2-year war. Israel was fighting basically Hamas militia, about 40,000 of them, Hezbollah militia, another 40,000 militias, and Iran, which was weakened by Western sanctions for more than 40 years. However, this war took 2 years. It took at least 2,000 lives of Israelis. I think 1,200 of them or more on the first day, and many of them are civilians, and we cannot condone that. We cannot, at any circumstances, condone that. But we need to look into the cost of this war. 70,000 plus civilian Palestinians, most of them are women and children, were killed. And I personally, and I say that to all my Israeli friends, I have not heard a single voice in Israeli society asking for a stop of this massacre.
No, Ambassador, come on. There were actually demonstrations about that. There were a lot of protests with faces of children that were killed. And by
Believe
the way,
me, my friend, I looked in
I can send you the materials.
demonstrations. Please send
Definitely.
me
Yeah.
the news about that. I saw.
I cannot say that they were the majority, but
the
there were steady demonstrations for Gaza in Haifa and Tel Aviv, and
because of the releasing the hostages. Because of I saw all of that, but I didn't see the drive to stop the war, to stop the killing, and this is very important even for the security of Israel, because if we look strategically speaking, in the last 2 years, Israel was not able to finish this war on its own. It needed the US military backing and even direct intervention. It needed many of NATO members. It even needed the acquiescence of some Arab states with information, with providing them with the airspace usage, etc., etc., etc. And definitely with the confrontation with Iran, it needed the US. And it is now repeating the scenario. And the outcome is Israel militarily won over these parties, but were not able to eliminate them. And they can regrow and rearm, and they can pose another security threat. And if we compare that to the model of relations between Israel and Egypt and Jordan, for example, two neighboring countries, peace was the guarantee that the territories of these countries are not going to be used against Israel. So not only that these countries will not be involved against, but the territories as well. And this is one thing that I also blame my Israeli friends for. There has been a persistent effort, for decades, to throw Gaza on the shoulders of the Egyptians or the Egyptian government or whatever. And Egypt has resisted that. During the war and during even the early days of the war, the Israeli military was trying to push Palestinians to the Rafah crossing in order to go into Sinai. And this, from an Egyptian perspective, could turn the peace between Egypt and Israel into a very dangerous territory, because these people will continue to resist the Israeli occupation. And if they do it from Egyptian territory, that would bring war to the Egyptian territory against Israel. And it would really jeopardize our peace. This is why we feel very strongly about that. And we feel very strongly about those who would try to push for this. To answer your question about how can we turn this situation into a more productive one, we need to recognize the fact that on historic Palestine today, there are 7 million Jews or about who are living. And there are also 7 million Palestinian Arabs, whether in Gaza, the West Bank, Jerusalem, and proper Israel. 7 million and 7 million. Neither of them are going to go away. Neither of them is going to disappear. So we need to deal with this dilemma. I'm afraid I am not seeing enough debate about this inside Israel. My Israeli friends, the pro-peace, and I have only pro-peace friends in Israel. I don't talk to the other guys. they all tell me that the Israelis before 23, they used to vote on the price of cheese or on the trial of the prime minister, etc., etc. But they didn't used to vote on peace proposals, on whether to have two-state solution or an apartheid, one state Jewish, between commas, state. No, the vote is not anymore on that. It used to be like that in 20 years, maybe 30 years. But I need some discussions of this. We have an opportunity today. The Americans are involved because the involvement of President Trump and his peace plan was well received by everyone, Arabs, Israelis, and even though some people don't like it, don't like all of it, but that's any peace plan. And how can we turn it into a workable plan? Because I know that there are some Israelis and Palestinians, radicals on both sides, who would like to outweigh Trump. So when he goes away, then we can go back to annexing the West Bank, and we can go back to military resistance. And as long as there is occupation, there will be military resistance, one way or another. And what took Hamas 20 years to build in Gaza of military capabilities, today it could be built in much less number of years. 2 or 3 years it could be. So how can we turn it? And we need to show the Palestinians the immediate benefits of reconstruction, of humanitarian supplies coming in for this government, this central technical government control of the area, because actually they are now faced with Israeli restrictions and Hamas resistance. Hamas.
So this is exactly my next question to you. So Hamas is still there.
Of course.
And now, in the Board of Peace, we also have countries that traditionally backed Hamas, Qatar and Turkey, very much involved, So what do you think will happen, Ambassador, with that, So
for 20 years, ma'am, for 20 years, Netanyahu in person was allowing Hamas to receive suitcases of cash.
No, it's actually since 2018, but yes, for a few years, for about 5 years. It started in 2018.
In the very beginning, even of his government, they were receiving indirectly.
But Qatari,
in 2018,
Qatari money started to officially pour to Gaza in November 2018. This is again recorded. But it's not about that, So you don't need to convince me about the shortcomings of this government. Was in the Israeli opposition.
No. So it is not only this government. I'm saying that in 20 years, by focusing on separating Gaza from the West Bank, empowering some kind of entity, let us not call it Hamas, and let us not call where the money is coming from. Let us focus on what is the end game. If the end game is separating Gaza from the West Bank and killing the chances of establishing a Palestinian state, we will end up with October 7th. Believe me. And if it doesn't happen next year, it will happen the year after. And today, we are faced with not only Hamas type people, but we are also faced with the victims of the war. It's those victims of the war could turn to be even more radical than Hamas. Believe me, we are just aggravating more people. So what we are trying in Egypt, at least. And I'm really here speaking my mind first before I tell you what the Egyptian government think, or I guess it thinks. I'm not associated with the government anymore. I believe that pro-peace movements in Israel need to stress the fact that we need Israeli cooperation. Egypt needs Israeli cooperation in Gaza to make this plan work. Because if it doesn't, we will just be playing in Hamas hands and alike, and even worse than Hamas. One, Israel should not stop the humanitarian assistance from going in. As you know, Egypt has maintained the policy for the last 20 years that all assistance, all supplies going from Egypt need to go through Israeli processing. I was myself an assistant foreign minister for Arab affairs, and I was responsible for this coordination. Yeah. So we will not be accused or blamed later that we let rockets or whatever happen. This is one thing. Israel should cooperate with Egypt, with the European monitors who are now on the ground. They should help them, not make their mission impossible. One. So we need to process much more assistance and much more reconstruction material back into Gaza via Israel processing. I'm not insensitive to Israeli security concerns at all. This is one. Two, Israel should not obstruct the mission of the Palestinian Executive Committee. Israel approved the committee. Approved it. It vetted
the technocrat committee that currently is in Cairo.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The Israeli government, the Israeli security agencies approved this committee, vetted them, and all of them are pro-peace. All of them are very capable administrators with proven record of performance. We should empower them. We should empower them to take over and to give them authority. We should not empower Hamas in resisting them, because Hamas, for 20 years, they have been in control of this, supported by the Israeli government. So we should allow this technical Palestinian committee that we all approved, we all selected, to work and to succeed. The third one is really the linkage, the political horizon. If we don't provide Palestinians with this hope or political horizon, and it doesn't need to come from Israel. We know the political situation, but I have called in many of the articles, for example, and actually co-signed by Israeli retired ambassadors as well. We have called that for a U.S. Balfour Declaration, that the U.S. can provide this some kind of hope, guarantee.
A political horizon, yeah.
Political horizon, that ultimately this 20-point plan, if implemented, ultimately it would lead to serious negotiations about a Palestinian state in both Gaza and the West Bank, including Jerusalem. This is very important for not only for the Palestinian, I have to tell you, but for the rest of the Arabs and Muslims. As you know, right now, there is no progress with expanding the normalization between Israel and the other Arab states beyond the Abrahamic Accord. I believe if we have this accomplished, we will be in a much better place to talk about normalization in a wider context.
Thank you very much for this very detailed answer. Ambassador, just a few short remarks. The issue with the current technocrat committee that was selected is the committee is, I also, know some of the people there. The committee is fine. The problem is not with the committee, but it seems that the committee will be lacking fists because Hamas still has military presence in Gaza. The technocrat committee has nobody. It doesn't have police. It does not have any security force to rely on. And that seems to me as one of the core problems because you need to defend your ideals. You need to defend also that, the humanitarian aid that will be flowing into Gaza will not end up in the hands of these malign elements. So this is something that seems to be unresolved for now. I hope that solution will be found. And another small remark is about the number of the Palestinian victims in Gaza Strip. The IDF embraced the numbers that were published until now, by the Ministry of Health in Gaza that is controlled by the Hamas, about 71,000 victims. These numbers include also the terrorists of Hamas. The percentage is about 25,000 terrorists. So that's not only civilians. Of course, we don't deny it's a horrific number and a very high number of civilians. But nevertheless, this number also includes the Hamas people. We don't know exactly how much because Hamas does not disclose this information. I want to ask you about the popular sentiment. So you were mentioning right now the issue of normalization. And I agree with your analysis. I also thought that there is little chance, I think zero chance, that Saudi Arabia will join even after the war, but with everything that just happened in Gaza and with no prospect for any kind of Palestinian sovereign entity, to be created anytime soon, I thought that it's just unrealistic. But I wanted to ask you about, your country. So we saw in the beginning of the war demonstrations in Cairo, in also Alexandria, in some other cities. Also, some Israeli tourists were killed, unfortunately, in Alexandria in the very few days of the war. What do people think right now, not specifically on Gaza, but on the future of peace relations with Israel? I think that, we always underestimate this, popular sentiment. What do people think? Also, it's in regards to Saudi Arabia. Yes, it's not a democratic country, but it doesn't mean that, the popular feeling is not dominant and it doesn't influence the politics.
Well, this is another area where the Israeli-Egyptian peace survived many obstacles. Since the signing of the Camp David agreements, this peace survived many Israeli acts that were not approved or agreed to by most of the Egyptian population. And I'll give you examples. Annexation of Jerusalem, annexation of the Golan Heights. The annexation of Jerusalem actually happened while Sadat was still alive. And there are some theories that he paid his life because of that decision. But in any case, what I am saying, and on the Israeli side, it survived also many of the things like attacks against, for example, the Israeli embassy by demonstrations during the Arab Spring, if you remember. Mm-hmm. And I think part of those demonstrations also caused your friend, the Israeli ambassador, to be pulled out because of that. And because, yes, there is very strong resentment in the Egyptian public opinion of almost all Israeli practices against Palestinians, especially Palestinians, because this issue is highlighted in the media, and it's not now the government media. No, it is the social media, it is the podcasts, it's TikTok, and you name it. I mean, and young people are even spreading those products frequently. Egypt not only has 110 million population size, but it also has one of the most active social media interaction in the whole Middle East. So, yes, and there was a decision, but since 1980, by all professional syndicates to boycott any normalization of relations with Israel. And this boycott still stands, by the way. And some Israeli politicians used to call this cold peace because of that. But let me tell you on the other side how the pro-peace business community is doing in Egypt. We have tens of projects that are cooperating with Israeli enterprises and using quiz to have joint production to export things, textile and otherwise, to the United States, to Europe, to even to Africa. Two, we have been honoring our commitment. Egypt has been honoring its commitment in the peace treaty to provide Israel with oil, with the Sinai oil. If you maybe you don't remember, I remember. I'm an old man. It was a peace treaty commitment. We honored it, and we replaced it with gas. Mm-hmm. And we have been providing Israel with gas instead of oil for more than 15 years. And we were blamed for that by our population, by our public opinion. And today, when the situation is reversed and it is Israelis' turn to provide Egypt with gas that is being, by the way, liquefied and exported also to other parts of the world. Probably it's the best deal that Israel can get. Mr. Netanyahu is trying to use it for some political games in public statements that he is making. This does not serve Israeli image within Egyptian public opinion. Believe me, it doesn't help those who are pro-peace like myself. It empowers our opponents who are accusing us actually of not understanding the true intentions of Israel. There is always, and you would find it in the media. If you translate Egyptian media during your PhD studies, you would find repeated references to your radical statements about greater Israel, about you name it, about concerns.
Yes, of course, Ambassador. I came across this, but I can tell you that also I came across a lot of hateful articles about Israel that are not related to radicals, and some of them were against, the experts in agriculture that came to work in Egypt, and they were blamed for poisoning the water of Nile. And this was state-run media, so it was quite horrible.
This point about Gaza, I would like really about the gas. I'm sorry, I would like really to highlight it because I don't see enough appreciation of this issue in Israel, because it is this cooperation that has continued uninterruptedly since 1979. The only interruption came during the Arab Spring, when actually Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood tried to explode the gas pipeline. But this gas pipeline, they call it the Arab gas pipeline, but it's actually Arab-Israeli gas pipeline, because it works both ways. It used to provide Egyptian gas to Jordan, Israel. Now it is providing Israeli gas to Egypt, and we are planning to provide gas through it to Lebanon with this agreement that Israel-Lebanon reached to divide water economic areas. We were before the changes in Syria, we were applying for American waiver of sanctions. And now we will get it when Congress approved it. So, and even this pipeline can go through Syria up to Turkey. So this cooperation could symbolizes and signifies a regional cooperation that Israel has been calling for, but we need some cooperation on the part of Israel to make this happen. It cannot happen if Israel continues to plan the same thing they have been doing in the last 20 years or so.
So, Ambassador, you recall very well, the government that existed before this one, the government of change, that was led by Mr. Yair Lapid and then by Mr. Naftali Bennett. Well, I can tell you that I checked this. It was only 16 or 22 that this government existed, but actually, in regards to the Egyptian-Israeli relations, there were a lot of developments, a lot of positive developments. Also, the pan-Arab cooperation with Israel was much better. So, we know that things can happen in a very different way when there is a different political leadership. And let's wait for the Israel elections that will happen this year to look, whether there is a change, a positive change. I personally hope for that. It's not a secret. You mentioned Turkey, and you're actually leading me to the question that, before we will end our podcast, I was very much intrigued. And given your expertise in Turkey, you served as an ambassador there. Well, it seems, quite a very turbulent relations between Egypt and Turkey and, some of the Arab countries in Turkey. And now it seems that after years of, turbulence and even a very hateful relationship and so on, so now you have this kind of rapprochement. Is it really the new Middle East? What is happening? Please guide us through this very difficult situation. Yeah.
Well, thank you for this question, because actually I am in the unique situation of being the ambassador to Turkey for 4 different presidents of Egypt. I went there in 2010. My credentials were signed by President Mubarak, and then came Field Marshal Tantawi as the head of the military council, and then came Mohammed Morsi as the Muslim Brotherhood president, and then came Adli Mansour as the transitional president after June 30th. And then the relations were downgraded, and I came back. We had 10 years of very cold, even hostile and antagonistic political relationship with Turkey, when they insisted on supporting not only the Muslim Brotherhood, but all kinds of political Islam and they were under the impression at the time that political Islam would prevail in the Arab Spring countries. They proved to be wrong. And actually, Egypt was the main anchor that proved them wrong, but they were proved to be wrong in other countries also, like Tunisia, even Libya. And they made a U-turn. They made a clear U-turn. You can say 2019, you can say later, but they made a U-turn in their relationship with Egypt, with Saudi Arabia, with the United Arab Emirates, and because of various reasons, but they made a pragmatic U-turn.
But they still support Hamas, for example.
Well, that's exactly the point I made to you earlier. At the time, they were not the only people who were supporting Hamas. At the time, Hamas was supported by the Israeli government. That's my whole point. If we are going to change that, we need to change the policy of the Israeli government. And I will give you a good evidence to what I'm saying. When we gave Turkey and Qatar their rightful recognition that they earned for influencing Hamas, joining Egypt to influence Hamas to accept the Trump peace plan, and we gave them seats in the Sharm el-Sheikh summit, we haven't heard any negative comments from Turkey. It is the other way around. If you hear Turkey today, you would find him echoing the Egyptian talking points about supporting Trump plan, implementing it. So the more we give them recognition of influencing Hamas, and this is my answer to your earlier question. I didn't get the chance to answer it, about empowering the technical Palestinian community while they don't have police force. Our way of empowering it first starts with empowering it politically. They see that we are all supporting them, one. Two, we can empower them by providing them with the few thousand Palestinian force that were trained in Egypt and Jordan. We have them ready. We need Israeli cooperation to let them deploy them. And again, these two are vetted by Israel. I'm not saying any secrets. This is very well known. So we need to be open about that. We need to empower them. We need to put the power of the police in the hands of independent Palestinians other than Hamas. And if Mr. Netanyahu would continue to object to anyone who would have some affiliation with the Palestinian Authority in some day in his history, then he and I and everyone would need to live with Hamas, controlling Gaza for another 10 or 20 years. There is no way, no other way. It's either that or the other option. This is two. Three is linking those police forces and the technical committee to the distribution of assistance to the centers, linking the power to give to those people, instead of leaving it in the hands of municipalities that we know that Hamas runs. We know that. So the criteria would be, as long as those officials are linked to the technical committee and to its police force, we would allow them to function, and we would allow them to identify those who need urgent assistance. The fourth thing is, this cannot work if Israel continues to occupy more than half of Gaza. If this is going to last, regardless of the improvement or progress we make on the ground, it will make Palestinians have no incentive to develop this plan any further. So we need to link progress on the ground.
We still need to see progress. I think we both agree on that.
Yes, but if we are not going to recognize this progress, if we prevent it on the ground, if we don't allow people to go in, I am telling you,
in the Rafah crossing.
Of course, two ways, because if we don't tell Palestinians that those who will go out will be able to go back in, we will be shooting ourselves in the foot. And I explained this earlier on, but this is one, Rafah, but also allowing this Palestinian police force to go in and to take charge. It's Hamas says.
That's logical.
Hamas says we are in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So let us call their bluff if they are bluffing. And Hamas is under a lot of pressure from Egypt, from Turkey, from the US, by the way, to cooperate. But if Israel is going to let her off the hook by objecting to the people that Israel vetted itself, then we cannot help it. If Hamas would build up and would use the opportunity to repeat the same failed story.
Yeah, I guess we will see soon enough what is happening there and whether the Americans indeed will exercise their pressure the way that they did to achieve the ceasefire. If they will stay committed, then probably, this plan has a chance to work. And this is something that we hope in Israel as well, because, I participated today in the day that we record this podcast in one of the television shows, and the anchor ended the show with a statement, "Today is another day that we do not have a war." So this is something that is appreciated in Israel. Ambassador, before, we will. I want to ask you a question that, as a journalist, I used to work as a journalist for many years. I always used to ask the people who I interviewed in Arabic. I used to ask them, "So, hal inta mutafail? Are you optimistic? Are you optimistic about our region? Are you optimistic about track 2 or track 1? About our chances to really, indeed, to promote this comprehensive peace?" Something that, we in Ropes basically are fully invested in. But, what is your opinion from looking out from Cairo?
Well, I have to warn you that you are asking the wrong person, because my kids and the whole younger generation accuses me of being too optimistic or over optimistic or idealist in optimism. And I always try to find ways to move forward, and I prove to be wrong in many cases. And I'm only optimistic because I see elements today that can change the situation. But in the meantime, I am experienced enough and old enough to see also people in Israel and in Hamas and in other radical quarters betting that maybe Trump would lose interest. Maybe we would outweigh him. Maybe we will go back to the scenarios of before October 2023. Believe me, I don't want another 70,000 or 50,000 if you discount Hamas numbers. Palestinian civilians killed, and I don't want 1,500 or 2,000 Israeli civilians killed. When we are having these track 2 meetings we used during the war, our Israeli friends used to have messages on their cell phones warning them that their homes are in the area where a missile is coming to hit them. Our Palestinian friends were receiving calls of condolences for their immediate relatives being killed. So, of course, I don't want to go back to this, but it doesn't happen automatically. It doesn't happen. Yes, we don't have a war today, but we still have people killed in the Palestinian camps. I'm not talking about Hamas operatives. I'm talking about civilians. And actually, some of them are moving with journalists in Egyptian vehicles. It's called the Egyptian Committee, that Red Crescent Committee. And Israel is notified about that. We need a stop to that. And it doesn't happen only through security measures. It needs some political backing, and we need new thinking. I am optimistic that also pro-peace people in Israel would prevail. And I hope that your next election, peace would be an item on the agenda. Inshallah. Not only the price of cheese, or but also
I hope very much for that.
I hope that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Salahaddin. It was great to have you at the ROPESCAST. You've been listening to the ROPESCAST, the independent voice of the Middle East. And our guest today was Ambassador Abderahman Salaheldin, an ambassador of Egypt in Turkey and Czech Republic, and currently an academic professor and a track 2 diplomat. We hope very much that you enjoyed this episode. You can look for more information about ROPES at our website, ropes.org, and if you like what we are doing, also leave us a modest donation. Thank you very much. You will be joining us also the next time, hopefully. And for now, shalom and salam.